market sentiment.
Okay. Thank you very much, Irtiza. Thanks a lot for inviting me and giving me giving me the opportunity to speak. Uh, okay, so I think very quickly, given the way interest rate movements are happening in the world, I think it's very quickly. Until September last year, it was very well expected that global interest rates will be taking a unified downward trend, starting from US all the way to Europe, UK, and emerging markets. Japan was the only outlier, and it has been the case for a while now. Unfortunately, I think what happened for the Federal Reserve and for some of the emerging market economies, I think we all know in November with the US elections, Donald Trump happened, and Donald Trump's policies, which I classify as D2, T2, deregulation, deportation, tariffs, and taxes. These policies have short and medium term implications on both fiscal and monetary policy. Without going into a lot of details on those implications, I think let's come to monetary policy in the US and what has happened that since December, post the election and 100 basis points of cut by the Fed, this year we have already seen, and it is now getting more clear, that the Fed's plans to ease policy are now kind of on hold and they are forced to take a pause because of uncertainty due to tariff policies, which will most likely have an impact on inflation. Similarly, the drive to kick illegal immigrants out of the US is going to have an impact, negative impact on the labor market. It will increase to labor market tightness, which again has an inflationary impact, potential inflationary impact. So that's why I think Fed is likely to be on hold in the near future, and that does not bode well for the emerging markets, especially for a country like Pakistan, for two reasons. So one obviously is that our domestic environment was improving and continues to improve thanks to inflation coming down. It's under 5% as far as I recall, based on the last month's print. Interest rates have been cut by around 1,000 basis points, now 12% as per the last interest rate decision by the SBP. So while domestic policies are supportive, the international monetary policy is not looking very conducive for Pakistan for two main reasons. One, obviously, with interest rates in the US likely to stay on hold for the near future, which means that we are staring at 4.25% on the Fed rate, which means that dollar is likely to remain strong. The earlier expectation of dollar weakness probably will not get realized anytime soon. And second thing, and that's more important, is the fact that the ability of emerging market countries to go and tap the debt markets, which Pakistan has not been able to do so. I think last time we did it was in January 2022. So it's over 3 years now, and our efforts over the last 6 months, based on my interaction with the ministry and some other analysts, is that although we wanted to and we have planned external borrowing in the budget, it's unlikely that we'll be able to issue a euro bond due to our credit rating, which remains below B, and obviously the elevated interest rates which are there and likely to persist.
Yeah.
Similarly, I think the challenge is if the plans were to do some panda bond in China. That keeps, I think it is still on cards, but it's getting delayed. So interest rates, international interest rate policies have made the environment a bit tougher for the Pakistan economy, especially on the external front.
That's
A
great.
strong
Thank you so
contrast.
much.
Yeah.
Held back on any interest rate movement at this point in time, and the capacity to borrow for Pakistan from US or other European or Western markets, especially the US, is because of its rating not being the investment grade at this point in time. So thank you so much for that. Moving on, my next question is to Ali Khizar. Ali, how do you see the rising global interest rates and this tight monetary policy in the West affecting Pakistan's ability to secure foreign investment and funding? Now, similar to what I asked Hassan, but this would include the investment part also.
So I take you back in the past few years and experience what we had in the past few years and connected to the global environment. So we all know that our economy went through a very turbulent period of 2022 and 2023, and we experienced unprecedented inflation and a very low time. But there are some elements where domestic politics and economic policies have to role to play.
Ali, I'm sorry, there's a bit of a disturbance in your voice. If probably could speak a bit louder or closer to the.
just a second. Let me see this.
I think some internet issue there.
Yes, this is better now. Yeah, much better.
So yeah, that disconnected. So the uh, there are a couple of factors there apart from the domestic and economic and political. There were global factors which contributed a lot towards the kind of unprecedented inflation and economic crisis we faced in 2022 and 23. The global commodity prices were so super cycle after the COVID and the Ukraine war, and then the tightening of the global interest rate. So that has led to the crisis as our commodity prices, all the food and energy prices moved up in Pakistan, and that led to the high inflation. Then and within the energy, even the capacity payment problem is very much linked to the global interest rate and all, and so we experienced that. Now, with 2024, the global pressure tapering off, the global commodity prices came down. You've seen that the food prices, especially wheat and all that, they really reduced, and that wheat prices are reduced to one third in Pakistan and all that, and that brought the inflation in Pakistan back down to about 4% as of currently, and they go up down to as 2%, and average it would remain in the single digit. So that's one area. That's why we reduced the interest rate, and as well, and that's why we kind of averted the default like situation which was there in 2022 and 2023 most of the time. So that's a backdrop, and there was absolutely no investment coming up at that time. And but the unfortunate part is the investment is not coming up in today as well. I mean, the global interest rate are down, but they're not down as much. Now the US dollar is strengthening and PKR being stable with that. So there's an increasing anxiety building up that PKR may adjust by a few percentage points in the coming months. And then the realization is sinking in that the state bank may not ease the monetary policy to go to the single digit and may remain about somewhere around 10 to 12%, and currently we are at 12%. And so that is slowing down the momentum of the stock market and the other markets asset classes, and seeing that the foreign investor is not coming. So that's one reason the foreign investor is not coming, despite the fact that the domestic economic stabilization is there, and the government is really, trying to celebrate it. But that stabilization is more or less because of the softening global commodity prices and lowering of the global interest rate that's coming, helping your energy and food prices to come down. Having said that, our issues are there, and if we see that the state bank reserves are somewhere around 11 billion as of now, and last month import payment bill was 5.4 billion. If we see that number, we're barely covering 2 months of imports. That's too less a number to think about growth. That's too less a number for someone to put in investment. So because of those factors, the investment is not coming in. And if you want to, and if you see, there was a portfolio investment coming in, government debt securities, which you also call it hot money as well. So that amount was there, and but that has been drying out because Pakistan has decreased the interest rate significantly, while the US interest rate are not coming down. Pakistan and the US interest rate differential, it's an historic average now. And so doing anything below that, that's detrimental for any kind of investment coming in Pakistan in terms of the portfolio. Even if you see the stock market, it has tripled in the last 2 years, but the foreigners are selling en masse. Like foreign net sellers, they've been stuck in this market since 2015, 16, and all that. They've waited patiently, those who are now exiting, and no fresh entry is seeing that. The rating agencies are there, they're visiting Pakistan, looking forward to a bit of improvement in that. But because of the reserves coming down and because of the absence of other foreign inflows, the rating agency may take time to adjust. Even they adjust a bit, then you got a problem. Then you have your own domestic issues as well. I mean, we in Pakistan, if you go to the mainstream media, if you go to generally over there, everyone is saying there's just stability. This government is there, okay. This government came and this doing this A, B, C, and all that civilization. But we all know that this is not a democratic government based on the people vote. The popularity of the government or the establishment running it is weak in Pakistan, and the foreign investor can see that, and foreign investor can
Ali,
see
thank
that, and
you.
the foreign that there's a
Yeah.
big political risk, and things can turn, tables can turn. If tables turn, the whole crisis can come. And
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 we have
and
seen this happening in
reserves are
Pakistan,
pretty much low.
over and
So what
over
you need to
again.
build up is the reserves. So you need to
Yeah.
build up 20 billion reserve. You need the global interest rate to come down, and then the foreign investment can come in. I don't see any kind of investment coming in Pakistan, and for various reasons. One reason is that global tightening, global easing has slowed down, yes, but the other reason are the domestic factors and the fragility of the economic recovery. So unless your
Ali,
oil
hold this
prices
thought
come down to
because that
$50
is
or something,
the topic
then
in
you
our
may see
next
growth coming in,
question.
growth coming in, the reserve may start building, and then big investment coming. But I don't see that happening in India even 2025. So 2025 is going to be a very tough year for Pakistan in terms of foreign
Great.
investment.
If now again, as you mentioned, post-COVID, the commodity super cycle, then monetary tightening globally and all that, and our rating not being credit worthy. So those are some of the reasons why, and as well as the rupee dollar parity, it is not conducive enough for even portfolio investment coming to Pakistan or to talk of FDI. Shah Saab, coming to you, how do you see these recent interest rate hikes affecting Pakistan and the ability to raise external capital? Again, same question that I asked. And what would you suggest are the strategies to help manage these rising costs?
Thank you, Irtiza. Thank you, Tresmark, and thank you, Financial Market Association, first of all, for organizing this webinar. Am I audible, first of all? Can you hear me properly?
Yes, sir, we can. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Can
So I
see you,
think
we can
we
hear you.
already have a very good background from Rehan and Ali Khizar as far as the economic, overall internal and external situation is concerned. As far as I'm concerned, I see Pakistan current situation more or less continuation of more of the same, Um, Khizar was in the end talking about political instability, but tell me what period we have not had the political instability? Even obviously currently the elections, there is a lot of talk of obviously and a lot of issues with the credibility of the government. But even when in the previous government, we had this problem of political instability. See, Pakistan's problems, obviously, we have accumulated huge debt, which is unsustainable. And due to some of the favorable external situation that was just talked about, the softening of the commodity prices and the reduction in interest rates. And I think to some extent, I think stabilization or administrative steps during the caretaker government and which have continued, there is some stabilization in the economy. The inflation has come down. The current account, we have seen current account surplus, and the dollar exchange parity, rupee dollar exchange parity, which was continuously a big risk. And, people were talking that whether a rupee will, dollar will become 350 or 400, etc. That somehow has been stabilized last 1.5 years. So those are good things, and interest rates obviously have come down steeply because of the reduction in inflation rate. But the real, I think, issues of Pakistan economy, they remain unaddressed. The problem, in my view, is that Pakistan's, boom bust cycle is always because of firefighting approach. Pakistan has never had a long-term niche. We are not trying to see, how Pakistan can create value and become competitive. And unfortunately, it seems we are dependent on IMF, and perhaps IMF has got a permanent customer. So our policies are, and IMF, programs. And this is what, 24th, 4th or 25th IMF program?
25th now, yes.
25th program, right? So obviously a country which is in 25th IMF program and which has to pay $25 billion in a year, with no current account surplus or no sources, what investment would you expect? Any investor. I mean, forget about the ratings. Obviously, rating agencies also see these things. The thing is that we do not have any credible roadmap on which, forget about the foreign investment, FDI, what about the local investment? See, we have one of the highest tax rates. Now, it's true that because of the reduction in inflation rates and to some extent stabilization of the economy, the interest rates have now come down significantly. But why there is no private credit offtake? I'm just coming from a board meeting of a bank. Last 2 years, banking sector has done, roaring business. Because of high interest rates, obviously, they've made huge amount of money. But now with the reduction in interest rates and obviously the culture that we have in the banking system, they don't know how to lend, frankly, to the SMEs and the corporates, and they are totally used to lending to the government. So with the excess liquidity, it's there. The banks are in, it's a quandary. How are they going to manage the situation? So the real
This is,
issue.
if you can hold this out, this is a very important thing that you've mentioned. हमारे IDRs जो थे, जैसे आपने rightly कहा, 85 to 90% investment to deposit ratio थे सारे बैंकों के. They were having a field day, getting over 20% from the T-bills and PIBs. तो क्या जरूरत है कि पूरा सेटअप करें corporates और SME वगैरह को? आपने बिल्कुल बजा इरशाद किया. But that is where the regulator or whomsoever comes in, कि वो आप डायरेक्टेड क्रेडिट करें या इंसेंटिव करें. पर्सनली आई एम नॉट फॉर दीज इंसेंटिव एज सच कि कोई आप रिड्यूस प्राइसिंग भी करने. और आपने बिल्कुल सही बोला कि हमारे जो पूल ऑफ बोरोअर्स है वो एक उंगली पे हम गिन सकते हैं. इफ आई एम सिटिंग इन अ बैंक एंड इफ आई हैव सम टारगेट्स, मुझे पता है इनको फोन करो, इनकी चार चार कंपनीज को इतने पैसे दे दे जब तक मेरा पर पार्टी एक्सपोजर नहीं पूरा हो जाए, और वो बात खत्म हो गई. और इंटरेस्टिंगली, और ये जो आईडीआर वाली चीज जब गवर्नमेंट ने ये टैक्स का बोला था तो उसका भी वाया मीडिया निकाला. आप बैंक के बोर्ड पर हैं, आपको ज्यादा बेहतर पता है. तो वो भी एक क्विक फिक्स सॉल्यूशन होता है. सो दैट इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट जो आपने हाईलाइट किया, दैट द एबिलिटी एंड द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एंड द actually the will of the banks to disseminate this credit into the market is not there. So coming back,
मैं
ये
एक और चीज
सारे
हाईलाइट करना चाहूंगा इर्तिजा,
प्लीज
कि
प्लीज.
देखें, असल प्रॉब्लम जो है वो जब तक पाकिस्तान में प्रोडक्टिविटी और competitiveness नहीं आएगी, forget about this short-term stability. Part of the stability is actually because of this sluggish demand. Because आधे लोग आपके 40% पॉवर्टी लाइन से नीचे चले गए हैं पिछले 2-3 साल में। द डिमांड हैज बीन क्रश बिकॉज देयर इज नो परचेजिंग पावर, उसकी वजह से भी है। तो मैं जब पूछता हूँ अपने क्लाइंट से, मेजर जो अच्छी बड़े कॉर्पोरेट्स हैं, कि भाई अब इंटरेस्ट रेट्स इतने कम हो गए हैं, आप क्यों नहीं इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो? तो वो कहते हैं यार 50% टैक्स रेट्स पे पागल हो गए, कौन इन्वेस्ट करेगा? तो इस इन्वायरमेंट में मैं आपको बताऊं कि थोड़ी ज्यादा जो इन्वेस्टमेंट होगी वो इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर में ही होगी। तो सारी जो पाकिस्तान का जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर है वो डिपेंड करता है ऑन बेसिकली टैक्स एवेजन जो है। सारे ज्यादातर जो है ना, सवाए वेरी फ्यू, यू कैन काउंट देम ऑन फिंगर्स, अदरवाइज मतलब इट डजंट मेक सेंस to make money and pay tax to the government. Nobody's going to do it. I mean, especially at a time, आप हम जब बात कर रहे हैं कि ग्लोबली देखें क्या हो रहा है। 2 years ago there was a race to the bottom. Ireland reduced its tax rates to 7.5% on corporate tax rate. So Biden arranged a conference to stop this race to the bottom. अब ट्रम्प जो है वो आके उसका प्लान ये 22% टैक्स है, वो कह रहा है कि मैं और टैक्स रेट कम
रिड्यूस
करूंगा।
रिड्यूस
तो
करेगा फॉर
आप ये
लोकल।
देखें, द बेस्ट ऑफ ज्यूरिसडिक्शंस टैक्स रेट्स कम कर रहे हैं। हमारी अप्रोच जो है, बिकॉज हम शॉर्ट टर्म फिस्कल डेफिसिट कम करना चाह रहे हैं, और आईएमएफ इज ओनली कंसर्न कि अगले 2-3 साल जब तक हमारा प्रोग्राम है तब तक स्टेबिलिटी हो। जैसे ही हम आईएमएफ प्रोग्राम से निकलेंगे तो वी विल बी नो वेयर अगेन। सो द इशू
अगेन इन
इज
दैट
कि
बूम एंड बस्ट
मैं ये कह रहा
साइकिल।
हूं कि बेसिकली पाकिस्तान हैज टू थिंक आउट ऑफ बॉक्स। वी नीड अ ब्लू ओशन स्ट्रेटजी, to come out of this IMF thinking, because IMF will only think of giving you short-term stability. एंड अब आप ये देखें ना, ग्लोबल जो हम डेट मार्केट की बात करते हैं उसमें तो हम है ही नहीं। ये पेंडा बॉन्ड की आप बात कर रहे हैं, इट इज इररेलेवेंट। नोबडी इज गोइंग टू विद दिस, एनी पर्सन, एनी इन्वेस्टर विद कॉमन सेंस पाकिस्तान में, विद इट्स डेट प्रॉब्लम्स एंड विद हाई टैक्स रेट्स, कौन पाकिस्तान में इन्वेस्ट करेगा? उनको तो छोड़े, लोकल इन्वेस्टर्स भी नहीं कर रहे हैं। तो बात यह है कि हम असल इश्यूज जो हैं, अपनी गवर्नेंस, अपना कोई विजन एंड अपनी कोई नीश, जैसे इंडिया ने टेक्नोलॉजी में नीश पकड़ी थी, हम हमारे जो बेसिक इश्यूज हैं इस मुल्क में, यानी 50% बच्चे हमारे, 40-45% बच्चे स्कूल नहीं जाते। हमारी जो मतलब एजुकेशन का स्टैंडर्ड है, हमारी टेक्नोलॉजी, और इस वक्त दुनिया जो है, देयर इज अ रेस इन एआई एंड डिजिटाइजेशन। उन चीज़ों में आप देखें हमारी सूरत हाल क्या है इस वक्त, डिजिटल सूरत हाल। आप किसी भी वेबिनार में आप देखें, बहुत सारे लोगों को आवाज़ ही नहीं आती। आजकल तो नॉर्मल जो है फ़ोन है, वो भी 3-4 दिन से तो यार फ़ोन ही नहीं चल रहा है। एक दूसरे से लगता है जिसको फ़ोन करो कहता है आइदर यू आर नॉट रजिस्टर्ड, या वो फोन जो है आप नंबर खराब है। तो ये तो हमारी हालत है। दुनिया 5G और 6G की बात कर रही है, हमारे यहाँ 3G और 4G नहीं चल रहा। तो विदाउट दीज बेसिक्स हम कैसे आगे बढ़ेंगे?
शाह साहब, थैंक यू सो मच। तो आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा कि दीज सम ऑफ द स्ट्रक्चरल मैटर्स need to be resolved before we move to that. और जैसे आपने population का जिक्र किया, one of the youngest populations in the world that we have, but population itself can be looked at as a positive or a negative, because internally वो एक इतनी बड़ी मार्केट भी तो है, उसको कितना भी बोले हैं, 25, 26, 27, 24 करोड़ के अवाम है, यंग पॉपुलेशन। आपने बिल्कुल सही बोला, डायरेक्शन वगैरह भी अपनी जगह पर, बट वी हैव गॉट एग्जांपल्स ऑफ अदर कंट्री टू कंपेयर विद। 50 years ago China was one of the poorest countries in the world. Today it has $18 trillion worth of economy compared to $24 trillion of US, the second biggest after that. So again, very rightly mentioned. I believe we are going to have a small poll right now. Komal, if you have that. The poll is pertaining to global and local economic impact. What do you believe is the most significant challenge facing Pakistan's economy today? जैसे अभी हमारे participants ने बताया, which would you see? Global financial market volatility, currency devaluation and inflation, trade imbalance and external debt, or political instability and governance issues? Hosts and panelists cannot vote, so over to you, participants, to vote for this. So moving on, if I may come back to while people respond to this as a single choice out of the four, Ehsan, if I may, आप जो पाकिस्तान के external account, it's heavily influenced by currency fluctuations. We've seen that especially for the past few months, but कुछ महीनों से तो कुछ stability है. Nevertheless, ये based on your experience in this cross asset market trading, what are the risk management strategies that may be implemented to stabilize the currency and maintain investors' confidence, as has been discussed now?
Thanks, Irtiza. Okay, so I think मैं पहले तो ये कहूंगा कि
Sorry, hold this. मैं जरा ये announce कर दूं हमारे poll का impact. So का result, 55% of the participants have chosen political instability and governance issues as the main cause of global and local economic impact. 30% have chosen trade imbalance and external debt. 10% currency devaluation inflation, and 5% global financial market volatility. So this is the public's opinion. I tend to agree with that. Over to you, Yasin.
Okay, so मैं जैसे कह रहा था कि थोड़ा सा आई थिंक पेसिमिस्टिक हो गया था एनवायरनमेंट, बट आई विल से कि थिंक
जनरली मैं भी उसको चेंज करना चाहूंगा. शुक्रिया.
जनरली आई थिंक थोड़ा सा एक अगेन विद ऑल ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट टू अदर पैनलिस्ट, आई थिंक आईएमएफ का जो फोकस होता है वो ठीक है, बिल्कुल 3 साल का प्रोग्राम है, बट आई थिंक गिवन द सम ऑफ द मार्केट्स जिनको मैंने स्टडी किया है ओवर द लास्ट 15-20 इयर्स, अगर पॉलिटिकल विल या गवर्नेंस में इम्प्रूवमेंट आ जाए, और उस पर मैं आता हूँ, तो उसमें आईएमएफ के प्रोग्राम की इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के बाद स्लो स्टेप्स स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म्स जो होती हैं वो दे कैन लीड टू ए सिचुएशन वेयर यू कैन manage your fiscal deficit and you can even have a manageable or sometimes in some cases even a current account surplus as well. क्योंकि पाकिस्तान का मसला जो है अगर हम देखें तो we have twin deficits probably historically for the last 50 years. मैं 48 का हूँ, मुझे याद नहीं पड़ता कि मेरी इस जिंदगी में पाकिस्तान ने कभी फिस्कल सरप्लस या ओवरऑल ट्रेड सरप्लस प्रोड्यूस किया. अगर कभी किया है तो आई थिंक अली खजर असलम कैन प्रॉब्ली पॉइंट दैट आउट, आई कांट रिकॉल. तो जो इशू है वो ये है कि गवर्नेंस या आईएमएफ की पॉलिसीज. तो लेट्स स्टार्ट के हमारा जो आपने कहा करेंसी, हमारा एक्सटर्नल अकाउंट, यस करेंसी इज इम्पोर्टेंट, बट करेंसी वैल्यू और स्टेबिलिटी इम्पैक्ट्स throughout. I mean, it's not just Pakistan. All the economies which are kind of open economies importing, their currency levels impact the current external balances. पाकिस्तान के 2 मेजर इंपोर्ट्स हैं, एक एनर्जी रिलेटेड ऑयल गैस, दूसरे फूड रिलेटेड, कभी कॉटन है, पाम ऑयल है, टी है, इस तरह के. तो वी आर एक्सपोज टू कमोडिटी प्राइसेस एंड इन सम केसेस गवर्नमेंट इज अ डायरेक्ट इंपोर्टर. इन सम केसेस वो कमोडिटी प्राइसेस जो है वो कुछ कॉर्पोरेशन के थ्रू, एग्जांपल पीआईए, वेरी बैड एग्जांपल बट इट इज एन एग्जांपल, दे ऑब्वियसली a big user of oil for operating their aircraft. Similarly बहुत सी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैं जो इंपोर्ट करती हैं कमोडिटीज, बोथ एनर्जी एंड फूड रिलेटेड. अब ये जो है अगेन वी आर एट इज टाइम वेयर द साइकिल और स्पेशली द एनर्जी, अगेन थैंक्स टू डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प, it is possible that oil prices drop by $10 in the next during the year, and we get a what we call a dividend thanks to lower oil prices. Or it could turn other way around. I don't think oil prices are heading towards 80 or 90. My expectation is that oil prices will be 50-60 levels. रशिया यूक्रेन का इशू रिजॉल्व हो जाता है तो प्रॉब्ली ऑयल प्राइस और नीचे आएगी. तो वो अब ये अपॉर्चुनिटी होती है. इस अपॉर्चुनिटी पे जैसे शाह साहब ने कहा कि हम लोग कंप्लेसेंट होते हैं, हमें अल्लाह ने कोई कर्म कर दिया तो हमने खुश हो गए, वो साल अच्छा गुजर गया, आपने कोई स्ट्रेटजी नहीं बनाई, और फिर 2 साल बाद ऑयल प्राइस अगर ऊपर चली गई, फिर भी अगेन लुकिंग एट ए वाइडनिंग ट्रेड डेफिसिट एंड ए वीकनिंग करेंसी. तो जो अगेन देयर आर पैनलिस्ट एंड देयर आर अटेंडीज, they should look at, I mean, they especially when the cycle is turning in their favor, it's probably the time to look at कि कुछ hedge कर सकते हैं. कमोडिटी प्राइस, ऑयल प्राइस को hedge किया जा सकता है. आप स्पॉट कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के बजाय थोड़ा 6 महीने 1 साल के फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट कर सकते हैं. उसके पीछे जो रिस्क इन्वॉल्व हैं नॉट द मार्केट रिस्क, जो जो कभी अकाउंटेबिलिटी वगैरह इस तरह की चीज आ जाती हैं. आई थिंक दैट्स द माइंडसेट, दैट्स द गवर्नेंस दैट नीड्स टू चेंज. Someone in the Ministry of Petroleum or someone sitting in Islamabad should be able to send the message कि अगर आप रिस्क मैनेज करने के लिए कोई स्ट्रेटजी डिप्लॉय कर रहे हैं, and even if they backfire after 18 months or after, it's the market which has that. You have not done something wrong. ये गवर्नेंस है जो होनी चाहिए. ये गवर्नेंस पाकिस्तान में, मैं आई स्टिल रिमेंबर सिटिंग इन द ऑफिस ऑफ PIA many years ago, or not 10 years ago. Oil prices were around half of where they are currently, $30-40 probably. Or they said we would love to hedge, but the process is so long and no, we can't. We will not go to Islamabad. दूसरी चीज बड़ी क्विकली मैं कहूंगा कि फिजिकल डेफिसिट जो है ना हमारा, फिजिकल डेफिसिट में हमें देखना होगा, दैट्स ए हार्ड स्टेटमेंट. फिजिकल डेफिसिट में हमारे दो मेन कंपोनेंट्स हैं. इंटरेस्ट सर्विसिंग, जो डोमेस्टिक इज मोर, इट इज कमिंग डाउन थैंक्स टू द लोअर इंटरेस्ट रेट्स. दूसरा जो है वो, आई थिंक फिजिकल हमारा जो सबसे बड़ा एक्सपेंडिचर है वो डिफेंस है. आई थिंक पाकिस्तान, while some people will not agree with me, I think we need to take a look at that and see how can we lower it in the coming years, control it, to give us some space to address issues like children not being able to go to school, development expenditure on health, social indicators हमारे जो हैं उनको improve करने के लिए. This is important. So I think fiscal space क्रिएट उसी वक्त हो सकता है, टैक्स रेट्स उसी वक्त नीचे आ सकते हैं, व्हेन वी आर एबल टू कर्टेल सम ऑफ दीज एक्सपेंसेस. यूएस में वो इलॉन मस्क जो है जिसने डॉज शुरू किया है डोनाल्ड ट्रंप के साथ, आई थिंक वी नीड अ डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ गवर्नमेंट एफिशिएंसी इन पाकिस्तान to be managed by some of the very fiscal hawks who can identify such savings. So this is my initial thought on this.
Perfect. Ahsan, thank you so much of the 3-4 points. If I could summarize जो आपने कहा, first of all आपने कहा कि IMF program is not necessarily bad, not in the financial terms, of course not. थोड़े से breather मिल जाता है, but more so on putting us on the right track towards the governance and sustainable growth as and when we achieve it. आपने बिल्कुल सही कहा, we are just on the path of stabilizing at this point in time. Growth is yet to come without heating up the economy in the process. Rightly mentioned, governance की आपने बात की, आपने hedging of commodity prices की बात की, तो मुझे याद आया 2019 और 2020 last quarter and first quarter, the oil prices in the world were globally at their lowest, if you would remember. $25-28 पे तेल मिल रहा था, ships बाहर से मिल रहे थे और कोई लेने वाले इतने ज्यादा नहीं थे, बट हुकूमत पाकिस्तान did a perfect thing of banning imports. कोई ऑयल इंपोर्ट नहीं होगी बिकॉज वॉलेटाइल सिचुएशन इस वक्त ऑयल की सबसे दुनिया में जिस वक्त कम प्राइस थी उस वक्त हमने नहीं किया. बहरहाल विदाउट डूइंग दैट, दूसरा आपने एग्जांपल दी PI के, शाह साहब वुड रिमेंबर, इसके ऊपर तो सवाल हो गया था, उन्होंने बेचारों ने बड़ी मुश्किल से, आज से कोई प्रॉब्ली 17-18 साल पहले एक दफा हैच कर लिया था और वो रिवर्स हो गया था. तो जो इदारे उन्होंने उनको बुला लिया था कि आपने क्यों किया. सो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर ऑल दिस इनपुट. मूविंग टू निशा साहब, what do you think of this tightening global liquidity? How can Pakistan financial sector optimize its external debt structure to minimize currency risk and interest rate shock? Because अभी जो हमारा still अगर आप country risk लगा भी ले तो international borrowing is sort of cheaper, especially when जब का आपका PSDP बहुत छोटा है और जब भी होता है आपको पता है PSDP में से कट हो जाता है. तो अगर हम फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट, आपके पहले के पॉइंट्स taken, but again international investors look at opportunities. हमने IIPP का फियास्को अभी देखा है और वो चल रहा है, but regardless of that they're always looking for newer markets, and again as I said we are a market of 25-26-27 crore. So how do you see that in this scenario, sir?
देखिए, if you look at Pakistan's situation, आप ये देखें कि मल्टीनेशनल सारी गवर्नमेंट्स में जो भी इन्वेस्टर्स थे, सिवाय कंज्यूमर कंपनीज के, जाहिर है आप जो बात कर रहे हैं ना 25 करोड़ की जाहिर है मार्केट है, तो यूनिलीवर्स तो नहीं गई हमारे पास से, जो है ना प्रॉक्टर एंड गैम्बल नहीं गई हमारे पास से. तो इस तरह की कंपनीज जो है, बल्कि इवन ऑयल कंपनीज में शेल भी चली गई जो है. मतलब बात यह है कि मैं सिर्फ ये कह रहा हूँ, ट्राई टू अप्रिशिएट। मैं बाकी IMF की कुछ पॉलिसीज अच्छी भी हैं, सारी चीजें खराब नहीं हैं, लेकिन ये जो टैक्स रेट 50% इतना करा दिया है ना, आप क्या इस दुनिया में नहीं रहते? आर वी सम अदर प्लेनेट? मुझे बताओ ना, इसमें आप कैसे वायबल को कौन इन्वेस्टर आएगा, FDI कैसे आएगी? और गिवन दैट सिचुएशन, जैसे मैं कह रहा हूँ कि मेरी नाकिस राय में ये जो स्टेबलाइजेशन है, इट इज आल्सो लार्जली ड्यू टू कंप्रेशन ऑफ डिमांड। देखें, हमारी जो प्रॉब्लम होती है ना, फिस्कल फिस्कल डेफिसिट तो होती है, उसको भी हम सस्टेनेबल बेसिस पे, आई एग्री कि वी नीड टू कट डाउन आवर डेफिसिट्स बाय कटिंग आवर एक्सपेंडिचर, एंड डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एफिशिएंसी इज वेरी क्रिटिकल। उस तरह की थिंकिंग होनी चाहिए। लेकिन हमारा जो करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट, ट्रेड डेफिसिट जो इतना बड़ा है, हमारा प्रॉब्लम यह है कि हमारी एक्सपोर्ट्स नहीं है। एक्सपोर्ट्स इसलिए नहीं है कि वी आर नॉट कॉम्पिटिटिव। अच्छा, हमारी बहुत ज्यादा डिपेंडेंस इस वक्त जो है, अच्छी चीज जो हो रही है, वो एक तरह से बुरी चीज भी है मेरे हिसाब से। जो रेमिटेंसेस बढ़ रही हैं,
रेमिटेंसेस,
उससे
जी जी।
आपकी रेमिटेंसेस पे रिलायंस जो है बहुत ज्यादा है। रेमिटेंसेस से अगर आपको थोड़ी सी सस्टेनेबिलिटी मिल रही है, एंड यू आर कंप्लेसेंट ऑन एक्सपोर्ट्स, तो आपकी इकोनॉमी कभी भी ठीक नहीं होगी।
जी,
देखें,
दैट्स अ बैंडेड सोल्यूशन, जैसे पहले भी आपने
जो
कहा था,
भी
इट्स अ क्विक
इमर्जिंग
फिक्स।
इकोनॉमीज हैं, एक्सपोर्ट लेड इकोनॉमीज ही सस्टेन करती हैं। पाकिस्तान जो है ना, बिकॉज जब तक हम कमोडिटीज से नहीं निकलेंगे, कोई चीज हाई वैल्यू बेचना नहीं शुरू करेंगे, हम इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन और कंपेटिटिव बिजनेस नहीं बनाएंगे, इनोवेशन नहीं होगी अगर आपकी इकोनॉमी में, तो आपके यहाँ स्टेबिलिटी नहीं आएगी, लॉन्ग टर्म स्टेबिलिटी नहीं आएगी।
थैंक यू
और
सर, गुड
ये
गुड गुड पॉइंट।
टेम्पररी होगा, ये जो भी
या
चीज है। असल चीज जो है, गवर्नेंस इंप्रूव करने का मकसद ये है कि
सस्टेनेबिलिटी।
आप जो है इस तरह की पॉलिसीज लाएं कि which provide which create some confidence for the investors। एक तो मतलब कंटिन्यूटी ऑफ पॉलिसीज भी होनी चाहिए,
पॉलिसीज।
और प्लस ये है कि प्राइवेट सेक्टर को डेवलप करें। होगा क्या
दैट्स
है
गुड।
कि पिछले 20-30 सालों में गवर्नमेंट को हमने इतना बढ़ा दिया है, हर चीज में गवर्नमेंट की ओवररीच है। और प्राइवेट सेक्टर अगर आप देखें, तो हमारा प्राइवेट सेक्टर जो है, वो कमोडिटीज बिजनेस है, फर्टिलाइजर है, आपका सीमेंट है, मतलब इस तरह की चीजें हैं। कोई मतलब हम कोई एक भी डिजिटल कंपनी नहीं है, एक भी टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनी नहीं है। सिस्टम्स लिमिटेड जो है थोड़ी ज्यादा है, लेकिन एक भी इनोवेशन कितनी कंपनीज हमारी कर रही हैं। तो आप
शाह
ये देखें ना,
साहब,
जो जो
इफ आई मे।
मार्केट्स हैं, मैं एक चीज और बता दूं, देखें, इंडिया की इकोनॉमी को अगर आप देखें, तो एक बहुत बड़ा रोल जो है उनका डिजिटल का है, स्टार्टअप्स का है, और उनकी कैपिटल मार्केट का है। उनकी कैपिटल मार्केट जो है 120% ऑफ GDP है। हमारी जो कैपिटल मार्केट है, US की कैपिटल मार्केट 200% ऑफ देयर GDP है। हमारी कैपिटल मार्केट जो है 12-13% ऑफ आवर GDP है। तो there are no investors in this market. How do you create confidence
वेरी
for the
राइटली मेंशन।
investors with the tax rate of 50% and very high energy costs, and total reluctance to improving our governance and establishing governance? Governance means accountability for outcomes.
That's a very very rightly mentioned, and again हम इस जिस फोरम पे हैं वहाँ पे जाहिर है ट्रेजरर्स वगैरह एंड ऑल दैट, सो कैपिटल मार्केट्स हमारी इतनी नेसेंट है। इवन ऑन द डेट साइड जो भी प्रोडक्ट्स वगैरह है, पिछले वक्तों में कुछ की थी, अब तो बहुत बड़े बड़े अमाउंट्स आते हैं, बट अगेन कैपिटल मार्केट्स नीड टू बी टैप्ड। आपने बिल्कुल सही बोला, जिसमें रिलायंस आपका बैंकों से कम होके और इन्वेस्टर्स जो होंगे उनके पास भी एक एवेन्यू मिल जाएगा टू इन्वेस्ट, एज you have given example of India, so it's a win-win situation both sides. Ali, I see you have raised your hand, but just add a question. आप जो इस पे input देना चाहें उसके साथ, what is the global protectionism आजकल चल रहा है, especially how do you see the US tariff impact on Pakistan? Because चाहे वो ट्रेड हो या एड हो, पाकिस्तान का सबसे बड़ा trade partner is US. We export most of our goods and bit of services to the United States. So what is your view on these tariffs going on, the trade war?
जी, this is a very important point. I think कि US की जो tariff policy है, that is going to impact adversely to Pakistan. पाकिस्तान में नाइविटी ये है कि हमारे यहाँ ज्यादातर लोग ये कहते हैं कि जी टैरिफ चाइना पे लगेंगे, चाइना के टैरिफ लगेंगे, तो उसकी वजह से वहाँ का बिजनेस पाकिस्तान की पर आएगा, कुछ ना कुछ आएगा और पाकिस्तान फायदा उठाएगा। क्योंकि चाइना का बिजनेस बहुत सारा वियतनाम में चला गया, इंडिया में चला गया, बांग्लादेश में चला गया, पर पाकिस्तान में बहुत कम आया। वो क्यों आया कि उसकी हमारी अपनी रीजंस है। और अब टैरिफ अगर यूएस में लगेंगे तो हर जगह पे थोड़े थोड़े टैरिफ लगेंगे, तो वो टैरिफ वुड एडवर्सली इम्पैक्ट द पाकिस्तान बिजनेसेस। एक्सपोर्ट, हमारी जो टेक्सटाइल एक्सपोर्ट्स है वो मेजरली यूएस के अंदर होती हैं, दैट कुड बी हैम्पर्ड बाय दैट। अगर वो हमारे पास 10% भी टैरिफ लगा देते हैं, और इंडिया के साथ जैसे कि यूएस के ताल्लुकात बहुत बेहतर है, स्ट्रेटेजिक टर्म्स है, और इंडिया को वो कोई मतलब उसमें वो उनको स्पेशल एक वो केस बना के उधर नहीं टैरिफ देते, so that will take the business from Pakistan to India. So that's a worry we have. So we don't know कि वो टैरिफ किन लाइंस पे लगेंगे, क्या पाकिस्तान से जो टेक्सटाइल एक्सपोर्ट्स होता है उस पे लगेंगे कि नहीं लगेंगे। So we need to see that. But that tariff would have an impact on Pakistan. हाँ, अगर पाकिस्तान में टैरिफ नहीं लगते और बाकी चाइना में ज्यादा टैरिफ लग जाते हैं, तो देयर इज अ पोटेंशियल कि वहां से पाकिस्तान में कुछ काम आ जाए। अच्छा, दूसरी एक और चीज आप अगर आप देखें तो पाकिस्तान के अंदर जो बहुत ग्रोथ एक्सपोर्ट्स में आ रही है, जो आई सर्विसेज के अंदर आईसीटी एक्सपोर्ट्स आ रही हैं, अगर आप उसमें देखें तो व्हेन यू टॉक टू दोस पीपल हु आर इनटू द बिजनेस, तो फॉर्च्यून 500 कंपनीज के अंदर वो कंपनीज जो है, दे आर डिस्करेजिंग यूजिंग द आईपी फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान। वो पाकिस्तान के आईपी को वो नहीं वो कर सकते। ठीक है जी। So that is one element which is very important. If they are not accepting IPs from Pakistan, so any business that potentially can come to Pakistan will not come to Pakistan. And what are our diplomatic efforts? What are our trade at RG's efforts, or what are our efforts on that? We don't have any efforts on that. So there are issues on it. Actually, coming back to this is the answer to your question, and it would have implication. Coming back to the conversation Ahsan and Asad Saab were having about that. First, Pakistan just to respond to the Ahsan thing on the primary surplus. Pakistan actually ran a primary surplus in the last fiscal year, FY24, which is the first primary fiscal surplus in 20 years. The last time we had that surplus in FY04. And we are expecting another surplus in FY25. Already, we got a very decent surplus in the first half of this year, and we perhaps have to run another primary fiscal for FY26. So we'll keep on running this primary fiscal surplus for 3 straight years at least. And that would bode well for creating some kind of fiscal space, which as I was talking about, and that will provide some space for growth. So, but the growth will not come anywhere before 27, 28, and I don't see any investment coming in before that, because we have to look and see into that. So those are the issues. And coming to that, and the first question what you were asking, and I was perhaps was not audible for most part of it. What I was talking about, that your question was that how the global conditions are impacting Pakistan. So I told you that the 23, 24, 22, 23 crisis was mainly due to the global side, but now the global interest rates are coming down relatively, and that had helped Pakistan to lower the inflation because of the lower commodity prices. But with the US interest rate and the Pakistan interest rate differential at historic average, so I don't see Pakistan interest rate to come down significantly. And because our reserves, statement reserves account to 11 billion, which is barely covering about 2 months of imports, if we consider the 5.4 billion imports payment in the January. So that would imply that the comfort is not there. I mean, the currency can come into pressure anytime. You reduce the interest rate to half almost, from 22 to
Ali,
12%.
and all I wish we had more time. We are just reaching about 1 hour of this time. So मैं quickly Ali to continue this आपसे एक बहुत जल्दी से एक सवाल करना चाहूंगा और आपका input चाहूंगा. I think that's very important for all of us sitting here. How do you see this global scenario? We've spoken about tariff in the US, but again, US versus China, a 24 trillion and 17 trillion, 18 trillion dollar the we say but economically 2 trillion. So How do you see this panning out? BRICS coming up, talking about their unified currency or a platform for that, vis-a-vis, and how should Pakistan be ready or take a side or take both uh, for
I
you?
mean, quickly on that, the US and China trade war and all that, I see this is not this is not the way the best is or the US is saying is you are quoting is right, but China is not thinking that way. China has gone up from nothing to the world's one of the biggest economy in the past 50 years and one of the most biggest economic actor in the world without any war, without raging any conflict, without conquering anyone. That's unheard of in the history. I mean, you've seen the US rise, you have seen the British rise. Prior to that, you've seen number of civilization and history is full of those.
On the
There,
contrary,
there
they
is no
mediated Iran and Saudi.
there is no
Yeah,
precedence of any country becoming this important
this big.
without waging any conflict. So China is not into war. Number one, you have to understand that. That's not China's style. China's style is to grab the market. And now, quickly coming to that, how China is grabbing the market, I'm not getting to 24 or 18 trillion number and all that. Those numbers are significantly less important, and there are many ways to look into that. But what we have seen in the past 50 years, from 1970 onward to date, US had dominantly the single largest player in the world. And of course, Russia was there as the USSR, but it faded away over the period of time. And they captured the world on that petrodollar phenomena when you ended up the Bretton Woods system and you moved up to the linked it to this petrodollar thing. And the US very, very on this is on this hydrocarbon thing and the world growing and all that. Now the world is changing. You
That's right.
from the hydrocarbon, you're moving to the renewable. Your energy sources are changing. You're moving into the
Sustainability,
electrification
technology that is now leading. Yeah,
and the China has leap forwarded in that. Now, now your precious metals are not going to be your oil, coal, gas. They're going to be the rare earth metals. You know, those are there, lithium and all those are used in the battery and renewable sources. And China has
absolutely.
captured many of those, and China has the first mover advantage of that. So tomorrow is the era of the China where they have captured the global resources which are going to be the most significant in the global world, but that they're going for conflict or war. They're not going for territorial control. They're not going to have a regime change in A or B country,
Yeah,
which was
totally
the
non-kinetic. Perfect. Thank
and
you so
how
much.
Pakistan, how question to you, how Pakistan react to that? Pakistan beggars can't reach to that. So we need $1 billion from here, $1 billion from here. We like to do whoever is giving us $1 billion.
So we'll go with the wave. और वैसे भी
We,
रिजर्व्स
we,
की
we,
हमने बात की,
we,
एसबीपी रिजर्व में बहुत
we
सारा
have no
अमाउंट.
regrets whatsoever. But we need to work on our correcting our own house. Keep on running the
Right.
primary fiscal surplus. Keep on building your export base. It's a plain and slowful. It's a painful and slow process which will take a few years and maybe a decades. And once we have some kind of importance in terms of our
That's correct.
self-reliance, then we can talk about okay, we take a position or not. We are not in this debate is wrong. Where Pakistan wrote because Pakistan cannot take any position. Whoever gave you
We've been through. Yeah,
a bit of pennies, you'll be fine with it, and you'll be asking everyone. That's
perfect.
unfortunate.
I think this time for our second poll, although we are three, but second poll, Komal, if we can have that on the screen. And then if we move on, if we have time for one question, I think we're already out of time. So second poll is, what should Pakistan prioritize to stabilize its economy in the face of these challenges? Single choice out of these four: tighten fiscal policies to control inflation, increase foreign reserves to stabilize the currency, focus on attracting foreign direct investment and improving trade balance, or initiate structural reforms in taxation and governance. It's very interesting. Let's see. 1 minute for the poll. And once we have those results, I think the time is up. I will summarize and move on. I believe we have a couple of questions also. I will respond to them once we are done with this.
There is one question, I think.
Sir?
एक क्वेश्चन रेज किया हुआ है. What specific policy measures can be implemented to address Pakistan's long-term economic stability and competitiveness?
That's right, sir. Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I would like to. I think my suggestion is obviously Pakistan, जो आप youth की भी बात कर रहे थे, इतनी population, market. बात यह है कि Pakistan has to rethink its future. Pakistan has to, make its policies to enhance innovation in the private sector. हम बात तो करते रहते हैं private sector is the engine of growth, but हमारी policies जो हैं वो they continue to kill innovation. How do we promote innovation? आप ये देखें वही countries आगे बढ़ी हैं जिन्होंने पिछले 20-25 साल में tech based startups को promote किया है. इंडिया की जो रैपिड ग्रोथ है पिछले 10-15 साल में, and I think all the credit whatever you may say of the Modi government is the digital India and the startup India. हमने ये पॉलिसी बनाई है डिजिटल भी और स्टार्टअप भी, लेकिन वो किताबों में है.
तो even Southeast Sovereign Fund has invested in Nintendo as opposed to some brick and mortar or whatever here. So
आप ये Amazon वाला जो है
का result announce कर लूं, you can continue with this last thing and then one final thing for everyone. So what should Pakistan prioritize to stabilize the economy in the face of these challenges? 47% have said initiate structural reforms in taxation and governance, and 29% have said focus on attractive for FDI and improving trade balance. So this just reaffirms जो शाह साहब आपने भी कहा और अली ने भी कहा कि private sector, good governance, systems to be in place, and everything else will follow. Be on the right path and let the competition, the global competition, us being competitive, and lead it all the way. I think we would have to end this on this. We are 3 minutes over above time. I would like to thank everyone, our sponsors, as well as more importantly, our panelists, Shah Saab, you, Ali, Ahsan, for your valuable input. I wish we had more time and we'll continue with this, inshallah, some other time. So thank you so much, everyone. So very kind of you. Komal, there was something that you said, we can do that now. So over to you.
Hello.
Gee, I believe you wanted to take a photo of the participants, as you had mentioned, or break off of the panelists.
Okay, तो आप लोग सब जी आप लोग सब बस स्माइल करें.
Hello.
Okay.
G. Is it ended?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
everyone.
much, gentlemen.
Shukriya.
Thank you for your time and your valuable insights. It was a pleasure having you all.
Thanks a lot, Kamal. Thanks to Tresmark. Thanks to FMAP. And again, looking forward to attend such events in the future as well. Thank you very much.
Bhai, Shukriya, Ali, Ahsan.
Thank you, Irtiza, Kazmi Saab.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irtiza. Thank you, Ahsan. Thank you, Ali Khizar.
Thank you,
Thanks a
ma'am.
lot.
We
Thank
just
you.
need a picture, so if the panelists could please wait.
Oh. I think I don't know whether Ali is still there or not, but Ali, I believe looks like that US is considering reciprocal tariffs, which will definitely